Hey everyone, welcome back to Kubrick Corner with me, Sean Wilson. So you may have noticed there's a new Disney-Pixar movie out called Onward, which features the voices of Chris Pratt and Tom Holland, Marvel alumni. Obviously, one Star-Lord, the other Spider-Man. You don't need me to remind you of that. Directed by Dan Scanlon, who made Monsters University for Pixar several years ago. And the idea is it starts with a prologue that introduces the movie's fantastical landscape, in which you have arcane mythological creatures and concepts which are suddenly invaded by modern trappings like electricity and the light bulb, and eventually appliances like washing machines and refrigerators. And the idea is that as this magical landscape has progressed, the idea of magic has been subsumed to kind of banal, ordinary reality that we would perceive in our own human world. And two elf brothers, Ian and Barley Lightfoot, as I said, voiced by Pratt and Holland, have kind of grown up in this landscape where the idea of magic has kind of been lost. Although there are fantastical creatures, they are elves. You know, you've got unicorns like roaming trash cans. You've got centaurs as police officers. They've kind of grown up almost ironically in it with a kind of mundane appreciation of what magic is. So the older brother is an obsessive of this Dungeons and Dragons style game, which has informed everything that he knows about magic. So everything that he knows about magic is from a rule book. The younger brother has always pined for their late father, who died when he was a baby. Through a series of plot machinations, they end up inheriting a magical staff from their father with a series of instructions. One brother realizes that he actually has magical powers, but he doesn't yet have the sophisticated abilities to be able to wield them properly. Spell goes wrong. The father, whom they aim to bring back to life for 24 hours, ends up manifesting as a pair of walking legs. His top half doesn't materialise. They then have to go on a road trip in a van called Guinevere to fully bring their father back to life and spend what little time they can with him, as it's a ticking clock narrative. There's 24 hours and they've only got a certain amount of time in which to do it. Julie Louis-Dreyfus is the mother, who sets off after them, and Octavia Spencer is the manticore character, kind of half lion, half lizard, whom Ian and Barley bump into along the way. And she has kind of, again, subsumed her magical past in favour of running a magic-themed restaurant. After an encounter with the two brothers, she decides to sort of reignite her passion for adventure and for fantasy. So an interesting, if rather eccentric concept. And I hate to say this because I am a big Pixar fan. I mean, I saw the first Toy Story in the cinema on my 9th birthday. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm 33. I am of the Pixar generation. I was there at the beginning, and the amount of astonishing narratives that they've spun, not just in the Toy Story movies but elsewhere, is really extraordinary. You think of things like Finding Nemo, which I think is a masterpiece, Inside Out, which I think is another masterpiece, Wall-E, Ratatouille, Coco, Up. When Pixar are on fire, they can take what are fundamentally quite simple concepts and graft an extraordinary amount of emotional authenticity onto them. The thing is with this, I thought the most interesting aspect of Onward was indeed that prologue, which is kind of skipped through in about 5 minutes. It's one of those classic things of like, that's the film I want to see. I want to see a movie in which the likes of orcs, elves, wizards, witches, their lives are basically rudely interrupted by a light bulb. I thought that is the kind of interesting idea. The problem is the movie that skips over that, and it then descends into much more of a generic, chalk and cheese. He's a brother, he's another brother. They love each other, but they're kind of crabby. They come at this concept of magic in different ways. There's a parental figure whom they want to bring back to life. And then it goes into a road trip narrative, the likes of which we've seen before, and it all feels very generic. It felt to me like there's a slightly more eccentric, even if twisted movie kind of in there somewhere, but it's kind of been flattened out into this narrative that for the most part I think is fairly predictable, despite the fact that the animation looks great. I mean, of course it does, it's a Pixar movie. I mean, that's kind of a given. That's kind of like saying active volcanoes are quite hot, aren't they? It's saying that a Pixar movie looks amazing, it's kind of part of the course. I think the voice acting is spirited enough and attempts to give the movie a bit of zhuzh. I mean, at the risk of inviting spoilers, the best aspect of the film comes at the very end. I won't say what it is, but there is a very clever kind of shift in perspective in terms of how the characters perceive things. I'm going to be very vague about that. That is actually really smart and really well done. And I think more subversive moments like that, what is needed in this in order to elevate it from a mediocre, if perfectly acceptable Pixar movie into a truly great Pixar movie. Unfortunately, I don't think there are enough moments like that, and there are also weird logical inconsistencies in the story. I know it's fundamentally a family movie, and one really shouldn't get hung up on these things. But the thing is, the concept invites these fallacies. The concept is kind of a weird one to get your head around anyway. So it's like, for example, why, if the two brothers are elves, why are they ostensibly only elf-like in the sense they've got blue skin and big ears? That there is nothing about the design of the characters to give a sense of anything elf-like. Again, this is what I mean about the fact that there appears to be a more interesting idea in there, but it's being kind of homogenized and made more bland than it ought to be. And the idea of, okay, so the cop is a centaur, in which case, why is the centaur riding a car? Why is the centaur not using, even if this is a world where people don't believe in magic, why isn't the centaur using the legs that are still very much on his body in order to do and I start picking things apart like that. That shows that the movie clearly wasn't working for me as well as it should have done. I've no doubt that it will work with a family audience. I saw it at a preview screening, one of these special family preview screenings that they put on now, whereby the studios like Disney realised that by putting previews on for families, it's likely to engender a kind of warm response on a mass scale. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a good idea. And certainly there were laughs and more than a few sniffles come the end. But for me, ironically enough, it didn't have the magic touch. So if you have seen Onward, which is out now in the UK, drop me a comment here at Kubrick Corner, and I'll see you soon. Bye.